Hey guys, how about a little Friday night unboxing video? Now, this box I've already opened because I just couldn't wait to see what was inside. And I think some of you are going to be very happy to see what it is because it means I will finally get back to finishing off one of my long outstanding projects. What this is, well, it's a piece of plywood, but on the other side of it are a couple speakers. In particular, they are speakers from a Philco 15X that somebody parted out because the cabinet was too far gone to restore. Now, the 15X is pretty much identical to the 15DX except for the cabinet. So these speakers are exactly the same as my 15DX. Now, you might be wondering, well, about the speakers that I was restoring, the original speakers that came with it. Well, if you recall, they were extremely rusty, and I did get the rust off of them. However, a couple problems arose over time. One is the paint is popping off. It's bubbling up. I think what's happening is the Bondo glazing compound I used is outgassing and causing the paint to bubble. I've read about this being an issue with Bondo, but I didn't realize the same issue would apply to the Bondo glazing compound. What I mean by outgassing is this was rusty and they were deep pits, got all the rust out, primered it, but there were still holes. So I used this stuff they call glazing compound, which is like really, really thick paint. And kind of squeegeed it on. Here's a tube. It's kind of a red toothpaste-like looking stuff. So I squeezed a little on there, smeared it around, worked it in, and got all the holes filled, sanded it smooth, and then painted it. And I waited a good couple days, or maybe longer, for it to set up. And, completely cure, but maybe I didn't wait long enough. I don't know. No, it's not the end of the world. I could sand this smooth and repaint it. But some other issues are rust keeps creeping back down in there around the pole. Can't really slop a lot of paint down in there because then it will cause the voice coil to bind. Plus, I can't get down deep inside here. So that could be eventually an issue and it might start rubbing again. As it is, it's okay. And I think the speaker would play just fine. I would just want to tighten down this voice coil because the cardboard shims have deteriorated and it's sliding around. So I'm not saying that they wouldn't work and that they're not salvageable. Oh, and then the smaller speaker has similar issues. But a bigger problem is the output transformer. This was really, really rust encrusted. And I did my best to strip the rust off, put some primer on it. But the frame that it was around it is about to fall apart. If I flex this anymore, this is just going to break in half. And the rust got down in between these plates and started to force them apart. Again, I'm not saying this couldn't be salvaged, couldn't be used, but when I saw a really nice, clean pair of speakers on eBay for an opening bid of $30, I figured, well, why don't I save myself a whole lot of time and effort? Even though I put a lot of time and effort into these, why not just spend the money to make this nice radio even nicer? So I bid on them, had a couple other bidders, but in the end I did win them. And they just arrived a little while ago. So I imagine you're tired of seeing this piece of plywood. Well, what we're looking at here is something the speaker did to protect the cones. He had asked me if I wanted the original board that the speakers were mounted to, and I said, no, not really. However, I asked him to, if he could, to please take some extra effort to protect the cones, because the last couple speakers I bought off of eBay ended up arriving with pretty trashed cones. You may remember I got a speaker for my Filco 643 farm radio over there that was kind of mashed in. And more recently I got this one, which was damaged in the eBay listing, to be fair, but it was nowhere near this bad. This was another case of somebody put the speaker in a box with just some foam peanuts and nothing else, of course, from it bouncing around with the peanuts against the cone. It just completely shredded what was left of it. Alright, so here's the other side. So what this all ended up doing was taking the original speaker board out of the 15DX, left the speakers attached to it, and attached a piece of plywood to the other side. So there was no chance of anything hitting the cones on this side. And then he fitted it into a nice cardboard box with some more cardboard supports and no foam peanuts. So it was just firmly supported on all sides with nothing coming anywhere near these cones. And at least from this side, they look to be in excellent condition. Very little corrosion. Just a little bit of light surface corrosion on this pole. Barely any on this. Little bit here and there on the hardware. Output transformer is in good shape. Most of the original paint still on it. A little bit of corrosion here, but far, far, far better than those other speakers. Alright, so I'll flip this over, take out the screws and get this piece of plywood off. Let's look at the other side. And here they are. Perfect condition. So I think you'll agree it was worth the wait and a few bucks to get speakers. They're in such good all original condition. Now I wish this speaker board was exactly the same size as the 15DX so I could just pop it in, but it's not, so I'll have to do a little transplanting. But otherwise, assuming the field coil and output transformer are good, I could just pop this right in the radio. Well, before that I'll put it up on the workbench to make sure they work. Hear how it sounds, and get this thing buttoned up. But I'm not going to do it immediately. I want to finish off the GE 810 and the Philco 60MB, which is very close to being done. And then I'll do this, and then finally I will start on the Dumont RA113. At least that's my plan. You know, my plans often change, but I'm going to try really hard to stick with this program. So GE 810, Philco 60MB, Philco 15DX, Dumont RA113. Here's the chassis I got along with that torn speaker. It's a Philco 60, an early revision, possibly the first revision. I got this off of eBay fairly inexpensively, just for a few parts that I wanted to complete my 60MB. For example, I want the 2 original filter caps, just for cosmetics. I was hoping to use the dial scale, but unfortunately that was broken in shipping, so I probably will end up buying a reproduction. And let's see, my 60MB, I ended up replacing the tone control, I think, with a modern wafer switch type. The volume and power switch I replaced. And I think the bias resistor, I used some power resistors, so I wouldn't mind transplanting all 3 of these, assuming they're still good. As for the rest, well, it looks to be 100% original. So I might hang on to it for a while for spare parts, because I now have 2 sets that have a Philco Type 60 chassis in them. And who knows, I may need a power transformer. Hopefully I never will, but you never know. So I might hang on to this. Otherwise, eventually I'll trade it or sell it or something like that. Now as for the speaker, I didn't need it, but it came with the chassis, so of course I accepted it. And although it's trashed, I think this will be a very good speaker to practice reconing on, because although the cone is all ruined, the spider and the voice coil are still here and flexible, and it's not rubbing. So I think I can take one of those cones I picked up during my Philco 15DX project and pop one in here. I know there's one that almost fits perfectly, just needs a little bit of trimming on the outside edge, and I'll plop right down in here. I think I can glue it to this original spider, maybe put some shims in there to make sure the voice coil stays centered, and it should work great. It'll be maybe a little Friday night project one of these days. Now as for the box that chassis was sitting on top of, well, you may have heard me mention in the past that I don't have much in the way of power woodworking tools. Well, that's about to change, I hope, because I just picked up this Ryobi factory reconditioned 7¼ inch miter saw. There's a lot of places selling these online. The overall review seems to be fairly positive. The main negative I saw against it is that the laser sight it comes with is sometimes off by a few degrees. I don't really care because, at least for the time being, all the cuts I plan on making are 90 degrees. I have a little upcoming project that I'll talk about more later. I need to cut up a bunch of small dimensional lumber, like 1x1s and 1x2s. At first I thought about doing it by hand, but I gotta make dozens, if not a couple hundred cuts, so I figured I better go with something like this. So I'll pop this box open and take a look at it. What really attracted me to this model was not just that a lot of places were selling it, and it was inexpensive, but it doesn't weigh much. I think I paid about 50 bucks for it. Alright, this is, I think, a clamp to hold it down to a workbench. And here's the saw itself. Oh, it's compound miter. Okay, so you can not only rotate it this way for your angle, but you can also go this way. Alright, let's see if I can get this to work. So, seems there's a locking handle on the side here. Can do that. Yeah, we can rotate this. So, there's 90. Lock that down. It's turned on. I don't see a laser sight though, so I wonder if that's not working on this. There's a trigger to start it, but there's a safety here, so you gotta do this. It seems to work alright. Let's see, how do you get this to lift up though? Maybe I'll read the instructions for a moment or two. Alright, it turns out the locking pin was really stiff. Finally got it pulled out, so now I can swing this saw arm up and down. And the laser sight required a couple AAA batteries, so I popped those in. I just installed a fence clamp and put a little piece of 3¼ inch square stock. Exactly the kind of stuff I plan on cutting with this saw, so let's give it a try. Still don't see the laser sight though. I'll look into that, see how exactly it's supposed to work. Worked well enough. A little bit of fuzzies though. It's one thing I'm not crazy about the saw blades. It looks to be fairly aggressive, and I'm going to be cutting small, well, hardwood, but this is poplar, so it's not super hard, like say oak. But I suppose it'll do. It'll do. I'll take a little attempt getting that laser sight to work now. Oh, there we go. Huh. Not sure why it wasn't there a moment ago. Guess let's try doing an angle cut now. Do a couple 45s, see how well they line up. Well, I guess I can just do 145 and just do this. Now I'll get out a square to make sure that that's right, but that looks pretty good. I think it might be off a little bit. But again, that's not my primary need for this, but it works good enough for me, considering what I paid for it. And now we get to the heart of this unboxing video. One of my YouTube fans sent me a note a while ago saying he was helping clean out an old repair shop, I think. and he was coming across lots of parts. I think they're pretty much all new old stock that he thought I might be able to use in my restoration projects. So he showed me some photos. I picked out some stuff that I thought I could definitely use. And 2 boxes arrived earlier today. Quite heavy, and I think he said there's more on the way, so this could be interesting. Now, from what I saw in the photos, I expect there'll be some resistors and capacitors and the usual kind of stuff. But, and it looked mostly vintage stuff, like a lot of carbon count resistors, including the 1 and 2 watt varieties that are kind of hard to find. And I think he had some fusistors and some thermistors. Who knows what? Let's see. Oh yeah, some knobs too. Oh, there's all kinds of stuff. I hope Sean doesn't mind if I show you his business card. Now let's see what we've got here. Let's see. RCA portable TV antenna. External part. Okay, it's like the kind that came with my Admiral portable. They screw on the back of the set, and a pair of rabbit ears extends out. Oh boy, all kinds of stuff. Universal TV tuner knob. Looks like a replacement socket for color TV. Picture tube, that is. It's a Sprague orange drop. Yeah, 715PC, that's the old part number code for the orange drops. Here's one of those 2 carbon comps I mentioned are in here. Shows a whole lot more down inside. Yeah, this is the kind of stuff I was hoping to get. The old style thermistors. Use these in like the Predicta sets. It's not the fusible resistor. This is the filament thermistor. It provides a slow startup for the tube filaments. Like, see, it says 31 ohms hot. It's probably several hundred ohms cold. So you put this in series with the tube filaments, and as the tubes warm up, this gets hot. Or I should say, as this gets hot, its resistance drops and more current flows into the tubes. Basically, it's like the modern CL90 I've shown in a few videos. Well, there's going to be a whole bunch of individual parts and bags here. And 1200 volt capacitor. Nice to get some of the higher voltage caps now and then. You need these. Like this little guy, 1000 volts, 75 picofarads. Sometimes you need these inside yokes. Although, no, that one looks like it's a spark gap. Don't know a whole lot about these. I think they use these in color sets to prevent damage when there are voltage surges. Solid state rectifier for color TVs, good to 18,000 volts. Circuit breaker. Well, as you can see, I've got lots to dig through. I won't bore you guys to death. Yeah, this is the kind of thing I was hoping. This is the kind of thing you use in those Predictas. 240 ohms cold. Well, it's just a matter of what is the hot resistance. Because the CL90s, the cold resistance is only 120 ohms. Whereas the Predictas call for, I think, 200 or 220. Not a huge deal, but I figure the more the better. Alright, there's a lot of these. So on 20 ohm variety. A whole lot of these bags. Alright, these are all I remember seeing these in the photo. These are all carbon comp resistors. All new old stock 1 watt. Now, sure, they may have drifted off value, but I'll keep my fingers crossed that they're still close enough that they can be used. Don't use them a whole lot in general, but for special sets, like say the Dumont Clifton or this RCA 621 TS, for special sets, I like to preserve the original look as much as possible, and that's where these carbon comps come in handy. These are probably varistors. I don't see any markings on them at all. These are just empty, but in case I want to label some of my own parts, put them in these little bags. All right, I'll pop one of these open and show you what's inside them. I just popped open a bag that was labeled 5600 ohms, 1 watt. And it turns out that there are multiple resistors. I thought there was only one in each bag. Just hooked the one up to an ohm meter and 57 or 5.76K. That's not too bad. I'd use that. Let's check another one. Same deal. So, supposedly within 5%. Yeah, that's still within 5%. Because 5% would be about 560 ohms, so plus minus would be between 5 and 6,000. So, yeah, that's well within tolerance. Or I should say that'd be 10%. 5% would be plus minus about 32 ohms. So, 5,300 to 5,800, so getting a little bit towards the, or sorry, 5,900. So, yeah, definitely still good. All right, let's check out this side. This is reed here, some more antennas and pots, salvage caps, contents messy. Old t-shirt, That might have been an old label. I don't think there's a t-shirt in here. But plenty of old. Oh yeah, there is a t-shirt down in there. Plenty of old pots. Never know when I might need these. It seems like lately I've been having more and more bad luck with controls. I thought there might be a logo or something on this t-shirt. No, just an old black t-shirt. Probably a little too small for me. I think it's a small or maybe a medium. Let's check out another one of these antennas. Just like the other one. So, on these portable sets, you can tap a couple holes on the back and drive some screws into them, and then wire these up to the VHF terminals, and you got yourself some rabbit ears. Because these metal portable sets, it turns out, it did not come with antennas. So this is actually aftermarket. Fits nicely, but it is not OEM. It's a rather intimidating warning on this box. Don't open in clean environment. Dusty, musty, loose, dirty, smelly. Well, regardless, I'm going to open it up right here. This debris will just fall into this box. Oh yeah. I got coffee cans after I'm done with the TV project. Usually as I snip out all the old parts, I hang on to them in case I need them for reference. So we got a whole bunch in here. Some of these aren't used though, like this cap right on top. Now I bet this is a paper cap. You know, I popped one of these open recently and found mica inside. There's a pretty high value, it's 15,000 picofarads, so I bet that is paper. Some of these might be mica though. But that's only 560 picofarads, so that could very well be mica. So definitely check out some of these. Because mica caps can get pretty expensive, especially the higher voltage variety. And a whole mess of used resistors. Some dog bones that might be worth salvaging. I don't know. Alright, now let's check the other box. Alright, these are all new old stock twist lock electrolytics, I do believe. Are these any good? I imagine some of them are alright. Like if this is a date code, might be from 1977, which is old, but not incredibly old. But I'll tell you what, even if I didn't, use these as is, certainly I have sets where these have been ripped out and new caps put in underneath, and I could restuff these, or sometimes when I'm restuffing cans, it doesn't go so well and something breaks or gets damaged, the twist locks break off or whatever, so I may cut these open just to get this ring out with the twist locks on it, or the phalonic base if those get damaged. There's a few other things in here too besides just those. Oh, little guy. I don't see a date. But that's certainly the newer style RCA logo. These are all electrolytics. A lot of CDEs, a lot of Spragues, and a few RCAs. And these pretty much are all TV types, just going by the range of voltages, or amplifiers for that matter, I suppose. A lot of 10, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 microfarad, 450 volt, 500 volt. I'm gonna pop one of these open. I didn't realize how big these were. Oh, okay. Box is just a lot bigger than the can. That's all. Now it'd be awesome if these were, like brand new, but they just don't make them this way anymore. So these are all, I'm sure, going to be 30, 40 years old, maybe older. And unfortunately, the electrolyte in these does start to age and break down over time, whether it's used or not. But that'd be a fun experiment once I get my Suncooler LC53 inductance capacitance meter all refurbished. I can try checking some of these out, maybe see how leaky they actually are, see how well they reform, and then decide whether or not I want to actually try using them. There's a brand I hadn't heard of before, Planet Capacitors, Bloomfield, New Jersey. Kind of an odd kind, sealed with wax and little tabs you could attach to a circuit board, I imagine. Sharp Electronics, Japan. For high-ray, it's a Nichicon. A vintage Nichicon electrolytic. Alright, so I guess that's going to be it for now. Hope you enjoyed this look at my latest finds. As always, too much to do and not enough time.